In Albany today, prisoner rights advocates were upset when the heads of the state prison system and mental health agencies did not show up for a legislative hearing on the treatment of prisoners with mental disabilities. The hearing was to examine whether those agencies are complying with a relatively new state law governing the placement of prisoners with mental disabilities in solitary confinement. The advocacy groups showed up to the hearing, but the Department of Corrections and the Office of Mental Health did not. WBAI's Jose Santiago discussed the hearing with Jennifer Parish, who is with the Urban Justice Center Mental Health Project.
The hearing was generally on mental health treatment in prison, but it was specifically focused on looking at the implementation of the SHU exclusion law, which was a law that was enacted in 2008 but did not take effect until July 1st of 2011.
When you say SHU, what does SHU stand for?
SHU stands for Special Housing Units. It's the euphemism for solitary confinement in the state prisons.
I see.
And so the Assembly was looking at how implementation of the SHU law was going. And they were also concerned about the spike in suicides that occurred last year. In 2010, there were twice as many suicides in the prison system as there had been the year before. And they also asked about some questions about prison mental health treatment generally. And one of those was about the continuity of care as people are transferred through the prison system and discharge planning services.
On the issue of, for example, prisoner suicides, I understand that there has been an increase in that area?
Yes, there has been an increase. There were 10 in 2009 and 20 in 2010.
What would you say was some of the key issues that were raised by the advocacy organizations, and just how that would translate into what the lawmakers should be doing to address these things?
Well, I think many of the advocates did highlight the fact that there have been some improvements made, but they also pointed out areas for concern and places that the legislature should consider intervening. And one of those was on putting limits on the amount of time that people can spend in solitary confinement. Right now, there is no limit in New York State on the amount of time that a person can spend in solitary confinement. And some of the advocates talked about people that they've worked in who've been in solitary confinement for 4 years, and we're looking at another 4 years, or people who have SHU sentences till 2017. Some people who have SHU sentences way beyond their maximum release date. So one of the things that they highlighted was, although the SHU exclusion law applies to people with serious mental illness, there are a lot of other people who are suffering in solitary confinement, and one way to address this might need to put limits on the amount of time that people can serve. The first panel of advocates were the attorneys who worked on the lawsuit, which was brought against Department of Corrections and the Office of Mental Health about the placement of people in solitary confinement, but also about the prison mental health treatment services that were provided in general. So their lawsuit, that case was settled, and they've been monitoring that, and their monitoring ends in December. So they were discussing kind of their concerns going forward, and one of the things that they really highlighted is the need for continued oversight. Part of the SHU exclusion law requires that the Commission on Quality of Care and Advocacy for Persons with Disabilities has oversight of prison mental health treatment and has oversight of the SHU exclusion law. So everyone focused on the need for CQC APD to do intensive monitoring to make sure that the changes that have been put into effect continue and actually produce the results that we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would you like to see come out of this hearing, or what can we expect from lawmakers in response to the testimony they received today?
Well, I think the lawmakers who attended the hearing were very concerned about this issue. Certainly, Jeff Aubrey has been a leader on this issue from the very beginning when he introduced this bill originally back in 2003. Assemblymember Ortiz, who chairs the Mental Health Committee, expressed his concerns, as well as Hakeem Jeffries and Teresa Sayward. But I think everybody was disappointed that the agencies, OMH, DOCS, the CQC, and the Commission on Corrections chose not to attend the hearing. And so it was really a hearing in which they should be coming and talking about the reforms that they've made, and instead it was the advocates acknowledging some reforms, but also pointing out problems. I mean, certainly we want the legislature to hear from us, and we're happy to have the opportunity to bring our problems to their attention. I think especially some of the facilities, prisons where there are specific problems, such as Great Meadow. Advocates were able to go into detail about the problems in that prison. But it would have been, the agencies really should have been here to testify.
I see, and they were not. Were they required to be there, or was this optional for them?
Well, they're invited, and generally, when agencies are invited to testify by the committees who have oversight of those areas, they do choose to testify, but for some reason, which is unknown to us, they did not.
Jennifer Parish is with the Mental Health Project at the Urban Justice Center. She spoke with WBAI's Jose Santiago.